So the Chinese economy is highly connected with the rest of the world, both advanced economies and emerging markets. When the Chinese economy, which is the second largest economy in the world, sinks, it is going to affect both advanced economies in emerging markets, economic performance in the long run, and recovery out from the pandemic. It is connected to the rest of the world not only through global supply chains, but also through financing. The sheer size of the Chinese economy matters. China is gradually recovering from the city lockdowns and travel restrictions that it has imposed since the beginning of February. I think in terms of manufacturing, China is already back to full capacity. Based on big data and real-time analysis, we have seen that people are back to work, they are back to the offices and factories. But the problem is when we think about the recovery of an economy, we have to think about not only the supply side, but also the demand side. The domestic demand has remained weak, partly because of the expected weakened economy down the road, and at the same time, the increased uncertainty in the labor market. So the world is either in a recession or about to get to a global recession. Given that China is dependent on global supply chains and global economy by large, it is not surprising that the Chinese economy is going to slow down substantially in 2020. The official definition of recession is a negative growth rate for over 2 quarters in the US, but given the size of China and the fact that it has been growing at a positive rate for many years, low growth rates is considered a very bad economic situation for China. According to the IMF forecast, the Chinese economy is going to grow at a 1.2% annual rate in 2020. It is going to be the lowest GDP growth rate for China since 1976. So even officially, it is not considered as a recession, but it is going to be a very slow economic recovery for China. I think for ordinary Chinese citizens, what they are concerned the most is their paychecks and also their jobs. It is possible that many people are going to lose their jobs. The unemployment rate in China right now in the urban area is close to 6%. It is a low number, but as I have said, it is very hard to define unemployment in China, given that there are a lot of migrant workers. When a migrant worker loses his or her job, if he or she went back to the hometown or the rural area, it will automatically not be considered in the unemployment pool. So therefore, based on official statistics, the numbers may look that bad, but I expect the unemployment problem to become more severe in the next few months in China. So the Chinese government is very eager to make sure that the supply chain is not going to be disrupted. There have been mentions by major economist governments like Japan and the US that the supply chains are going to be disrupted forever. Japanese government, for example, have spent $2 billion to basically encourage the Japanese companies to move out from China. So the Chinese government has to make sure that there will not be a major restructuring of the global supply chains, leading to a further slowdown of the recovery. Up to now, the Chinese government has not stimulated the economy as much as it has done in the 2008-09 financial crisis. In 2009, the Chinese government has essentially handed out 4 trillion RMB to stimulate the economy. Up to now, we have seen around 2% of the Chinese GDP financial and fiscal stimulus package. Many people, including advisors to the Chinese government, have expected that more stimulus packages are going to come, given the severity of the recession in China in the rest of the world. So we're going to see more fiscal stimulus. We are going to see more interest rate cuts. We are going to see more financial packages coming out from the central bank. It is not clear, how much the Chinese government can still invest in, for example, transportation infrastructure or in other investment projects to push the economy forward. So US is still a major export market for China. At the same time, foreign direct investment from the US to China is still very important, especially in the high-tech industries. So these two countries rely on each other, on international trade, global value chains, but also international finance. It is unfortunate that the world has started to deglobalize since the great financial crisis in 2008-09. The pandemic happened in a very bad time when the world is decoupling. It is still important to remember prosperity was maximized when the world is most globalized. A lot of the global issues, including the current coronavirus pandemic, requires cooperation among major economies, including the superpowers. It is important for China to keep in mind that globalization is still the key for global prosperity, but also for Chinese economic growth in the long run.